What's going on, everybody? It is Lick here today, and I'm going to bring you a really quick video, all for beginners who are looking to decide if they want to sell in Europe, pan-European. What does that mean? What does European Fulfillment Network mean? What does FBA Export, I believe that's what it's called. What these all mean, how to find out where it is on settings and what your base default is. And it's just to get you started, because I know a lot of people do get worried and curious as well about Europe, and it's really interesting. And it's also something that people do neglect to talk about a lot, because they sort of, once you've been selling for a while, you sort of see it as something that's behind the scenes, rather than something that actually needs to be in the forefront of your mind. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the account settings and show you exactly where to go if you want to find certain bits of data. So of course there are going to be some blurred sections of this because it's all my Seller Central hub. But just bear with me on that. I'll try to show you as much as I can so that it's not a blank screen, but let's get started. So to find out where your settings are for your fulfillment network and European fulfillment networks is you go onto settings on the far right. You come right down to the bottom where it says fulfillment by Amazon. So if you go ahead and click this, what will it do is it brings you up lots of different sections. Now what you want to make sure that you're doing is at the very top it says cross-border fulfillment settings. At the top here, you want to make sure that pan-European FBA is disabled. Now you can go and edit and have a look in here if you really want to just double check all the different bits, but you want to basically see that you could click this to enable it, but you do never, well, you do never, in your interesting English, but you never really want to have this enabled. You only want to have this enabled if you get to the stage in your Amazon business where you're going to be able to push through the VAT threshold in those European countries. Because by enabling this, Amazon sends your stock to be stored in the European countries. So if we just move this around, you can have a look here. They will be stored in these countries. So it used to just be Europe, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, then and Spain. Now it's also Poland and Czech Republic. Because what happens is not every country in Europe has a fulfillment network. Where, well, they have a fulfillment network where as such you can get deliveries in other countries besides these. But they don't have their own Amazon website, so a lot of countries go on to, Portugal might go on to Spain, for example, and buy their goods from Spain. It may take a little longer, but that's how they get their deliveries. And it is actually broadening up over the years that more are being added, but you do not want to be storing your inventory in those countries. And if you enable this, you will. And if you do, as you can see here, it triggers additional VAT registration. So you've got to go and register in every single country, and you don't decide where these go necessarily. Amazon will, if you just click that, and oh, maybe you can actually. Interesting, actually. I've never done it before, so I don't know. But what you do is, clearly from here you can see enable that, and if you then said those countries, each country that you say it's okay to be stored in, then you would have to register for VAT and pay VAT on every sale in those countries, even if you're below threshold, which is something that. Cost-wise, it's a lot harder because you've got to go through all of the individual countries' legal sort of processes, rather than and also it's not in English, is it? So But if you're a bit more of an established seller, these are things that you do. But maybe you just want to do one because you want to be in Germany, which is going to cover a broad area of Europe, or something like that. But anyway, let's move on. So you want to make sure that that is not enabled. So it's like this. Obviously update it if you can, but on this instance we can't. So we'll go back to the settings. So you want to make sure it says almost exactly what it says here. I wouldn't worry about all the other settings. You can just read through a lot of these yourself. I probably haven't touched on these for so long. I'm sort of a little bit confused. This section, which you can't see, is all about removal orders. Just make sure anything that is set to do with removals is set properly, so it goes. And also just on this top part, it says, do you want to return to myself or dispose of products? And I always say return because I don't want them to destroy something when I can just have it. So if you scroll to the very bottom of this, what you will find is a shipping program and export settings. Now this is the European Fulfillment Network. That's slightly different to what I just showed you above. So EFN, European Fulfillment Network, or FBA Export, is known as many things. Is not the same as pan-European. The way that this works is that your stock is sold in these countries. It shows up on Germany, on France. If you go onto those websites you'll find you as a seller selling those products. But you will not be shipping from those countries. You'll be shipping from England or the United Kingdom, which means that you do not have to pay the same VAT. You account for that VAT in your own country. So if you make if you are over the VAT threshold in England, for example, or the whatever you want to call it, United Kingdom, I should better say, you pay it in that country, even if you sell it in abroad. So I am VAT registered. If I make a sale in those countries, I'll add it onto my UK VAT rather than have to faff around because it's sent from this country. So obviously it takes a little longer and all that sort of thing. So there are reasons that it's some people do go onto the pan-European because you get faster shipping and stuff. You get a little bit more priority, but you don't have to go through all that legal riffraff. Is that right? Sounds about right. And if you then, once you've got all this set, you're like, well, where do I go to look at, apart from setting this, where does everything lie on the settings? Because there's a guy called Colin Smith, I believe his name is, and he could not find how to deactivate France, and he needed to deactivate France. So if you go through the inventory and you go to sell globally down here, so you'll see, if you go to inventory, you'll see a pan-European. You want to ignore that. Because that's obviously something we're not doing. Again, there'll be some information hidden on this, but that's fine. This will just give you some, overlay. I don't really pay too much attention to this, to be honest. On the bottom right, it does give you how many listings in each country are live. And what I've recently known is that I generally believe that, 300 in the UK and half in the others. If that was the case, that the listings may not exist, but actually apparently you can. There are listings that do exist that just haven't pulled through properly, and you can update that. Accordingly, I haven't yet done that. That's something I need to look into, but I haven't. If that's something you're wondering, I need to be looking into that as a thing that's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. So if you want to find out, well, where's all the information on these specific countries, this is just sort of an overview, a general thing. So what you do is you jump over to Build International Listings right here. Go ahead and click that, and you'll see a screen with lots of random bits of information. But what you can see here is it's split into individual countries, which you can just go ahead and have a look at. It gives you some information about how to actually create ASINs. But again, like I said, I haven't actually gone and done any of that. But what we want to be looking at here is connecting settings. So if you've never connected to Europe, this is how you would go ahead and connect to Europe. It will have, obviously I've already connected, so it says remove connection, but that's not something I want to do. And occasionally you might want to just make sure that your catalogue is as up to date as possible. You can remove the connection, reconnect, and it will automatically sync your current sort of account to those countries. Now and then I do that just to make sure everything's working properly and there isn't any sort of anything stuck in the system, because with Amazon, with their Seller Central, it's not the cleanest of, there's glitches now and then that happen. And if you want to edit your connection, you can go ahead in here and you can, play around. But I don't usually, my focus is not Europe. It does give, if you really want to see, there's like an exchange rate. That'd be interesting to see if the others, they all have the same. That's fine. And again, like with TransferWise, which is what a lot of people use, you can see here that the exchange rate if you just go ahead and have a quick, look at £100, £1,000, the exchange rate's a lot better than this. So that's something you should be looking at. But again, if you don't want to sell in certain countries, you can go ahead and remove, or you can just not add those countries if that is something you want to do. So those are the main things you need to look at and focus on when either connecting to the European Fulfillment Network, making sure you're not pan-European, and then deciding what you want to go ahead and do in terms of connecting each country here to the things. Because what you can see here is that, really, now that I knew that not all my listings were connected, I can go ahead now and actually double check this section and find out maybe there's a way that I can download a catalogue to actually upload into these countries to populate over those ASINs, which is something you learn. You learn new things all the time. That's the great thing about this. A lot of people think you do it for a month, you do it for 3 months, and you know everything. And I've been doing it for 3-4 years, and there's still things that not only that are new that come around, so you have to be on your feet and learn as new things are implemented, but also old sort of slightly more subtle things, slightly more technical, because you can see here it's not easy to actually find this page and then figure out what you're even doing on those pages. So those things you've got to be quite mindful. But just for anyone that's maybe a beginner or looking to sort of decide about doing something in Europe or getting rid of it, this is hopefully going to help you decide exactly what you want to do and how you're going to do it. Anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. Have a good one, and I'll see you on the next one.